Ooh, it says something here. All right. So we are live here. We are live with Guillaume Moubeche. Thank you for being here today, Guillaume.
Thanks a lot for having me, Nikki. Happy to be here.
Great. So Guillaume is the co-founder and CEO of lemlist, a cold email tool helping sales teams, agencies, and B2B businesses stand out in a crowded inbox by using creative automation and dynamic personalization. That sounds super complex, Guillaume. Please tell us more about it.
Okay, I'm gonna make it simple. With lemlist, sales team get more meeting booked because we have the best platform out there, the best community, and everything. So about maybe the company, like we launched in 2018, and we have more than 10,000 customers worldwide.
That's nice. That's nice. And I've seen you have some impressive growth statistics as well. Something like, is it 25% more every month, or how is it?
Yeah. So right now, obviously, with as we grow, like it's more and more difficult to keep the same month-over-month growth rate. But we're always having a 2-digit growth rate. So we're more right now around like 18-20%.
That's nice. That's nice. So actually, one question that's coming to my mind right now, Jim, while talking about this. So how do you sustain, you can say, growth over long term at lemlist? And I guess you are the one in charge for most of this.
Yeah. So right now, actually, we have a head of growth that's also like helping out. But essentially, like growth for us, since we're a bootstrap company, meaning that we didn't have any funding, the growth has really been about making our users successful. So from day one, my focus was that our users would get more replies and hence more meeting booked. And the more meeting booked they got using lemlist, the happier they were. And we did everything around that topic. So writing really actionable templates, building the biggest community around sales automation so people can really like help each other out. And also like always try to write the best content out there and provide as much value as we can.
Nice. So what I'm also hearing you say is that you began with kind of being user-centric from the get-go.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
Focusing on the users and building features and functionalities that you knew would kind of provide value to your user base and your customer base.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get to know kind of like what was of value to them?
Okay, so the first thing is like prior to building lemlist, I actually had a lead generation agency. So I kind of knew what was the pain of the users whenever they were trying to launch campaign, and then they were coming at us and asking like, "Hey guys, can you basically like run our sales outreach for us?" So I knew like what pain they were experiencing. I knew like these customers, and from all the platforms that I were using, none were allowing a certain level of personalization, and also like had the technical ability to do what we decided to build. So. Essentially, like I kind of knew the audience. And then after that, it's just a matter about launching your product. So to do that, we were in Facebook communities and we're posting things like, "Hey guys, here are the type of replies I receive when I launch my campaigns, thanks to a new cold email tool that we built. Would you be interested in joining the private beta?" And then I was asking people to comment interested. Then there were like hundreds of people commenting, meaning like hundreds of sign up also on the product. And from there, really trying to build a focus group on, let's say, like the most qualified leads and trying to understand, spend time with them, asking them questions about their current processes, what were their real pain, and trying to focus all our features around their pain, trying to solve them.
Cool. So what I'm also hearing you say here is that you started with the focus group and the beta of it, and you really targeted small niche communities with a specific target audience.
Yeah.
Kind of absolutely. I feel like that is the way most of the fastest growing companies in the world have been doing, like starting with a small niche, starting with a beta launch, making sure that their audience got amazing value out of the product. But kind of like, do you think it's the same way to go for all kind of businesses, or is it more specific to lemlist here?
I think, to be honest, like your point is right. Like a lot of companies succeed like doing that. However, on our end, in the initial phase, actually, we kind of rushed our launch on Product Hunt. And even though we ended up like number one, the product was like so not ready that it was totally a fail. So all the person we signed up, I think we had like something close to like 1,000 sign up or something. And the retention rate was like really shit, just because, you know, like the product was ugly. It was, we didn't have time to really focus on our users, spend time with them, doing one-to-one onboarding. So actually we totally failed at first. And then, you know, with time, we started learning from our mistakes and really like spending a bit more time. The fact we had actually built a community around sales automation was also great, you know, to gather insights, because, you know, when you do customer interview, people answer the question you ask them. And your questions sometimes are really oriented towards an answer that you would like to hear. Just, you know, like, I know a lot of people, I think it's a bias that we have, like cognitive bias that we have, but essentially when we do customer interview, it's really difficult not to put a certain angle of the question that you're asking in order to gather as many like useful information. And the community for that is really great because it's out in the air. So someone's going to ask a question, and then you're going to have people like putting replies, giving ideas. And from there, it's actually an amazing source of ideas of development for us. And basically that's what has kind of shaped the roadmap that we decided to build.
Yeah, cool. And we just got one comment from Staffo. I know you know him as well.
Staffo
says best growth boys unite. Good to see you here, Staffo. So you actually said something that was kind of interesting to me. You talked about the product launch, and you talked about how your product probably wasn't ready for the amount of users that you got back then. And one thing that we focus a lot on when we focus on, you can say, growth and retention, is that we look at the different phases of it. And what we typically advise our customers on is kind of like the resurrection phase is the last one to focus on. But I guess for a company like yours, we had so many customers who had already signed up. You had all the details of them, I guess, emails, and you could probably also retarget them and everything. Did you start focusing on resurrection when you felt like your product was ready for resurrecting the product hunt audience?
It's actually like really difficult. It's not something easy. Like a lot of people think that you know, like, yeah, as long as you gather like their details, you can always like put them in a sequence and then start getting like, it's first impression matters. And I've really realized it. And if I had to do it, like I would do it actually like totally differently. Right now, for example, we're launching like lemlist 3.0, which is like a kind of a whole new product within lemlist. And the way we're onboarding people is really like in a selective way. I know every person that I onboard. I do like the one-on-one onboarding for like half an hour, where I really like spend time asking tons of questions prior to like kind of showing what we're building, and really like trying to put people like at the center of everything and gathering feedback. That way, even though I know the product is not quite there yet to where we want to bring him, I know that people are kind of involved in the growth and know where we want to take him. Because SaaS business model, it's great when you have like what we would call like full service, like serviceless, like you can just sign up for a free trial and then like convert into a paying customers. It's great because, you know, it doesn't require like demos, etc. However, when people sign up, if they don't see what they expect and they leave, they don't have a connection with you. Like they don't know who you are and they don't know what you're trying to build. So if you message them like 6 months ago or like 6 months later, in order to resurrect them, you're going to say, hey, product has changed, it's become amazing. And they're going to be like, yeah, I mean, you were saying that on Product Hunt once you launched, you know, and your product was shit at that time. So why would I trust you, you know? And that's kind of like the difficult part of it. And I advise definitely like what you said, like focusing more maybe on the quality first. And also building the relationship with your user is extremely important, just because like you can always sell the vision to someone and just like explaining like, okay, we're there yet, but we want to go there, you know? And so the person, whenever is going to see the product, is not going to see it as an end result. It's just going to see it as, you know, like a learning curve and potentially like something that will like be shaped differently and could be shaped thanks to his feedback. And that's super important to make them understand that.
Yeah. So what I'm also hearing you say, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would have wanted to sell them the vision on Product Hunt rather than what you sold them, because people on Product Hunt, they thought like it was a ready to go product that you launched on Product Hunt. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And with the resurrection phase that we just spoke about, kind of like, why should they trust you again? How did you go about that?
That's extremely difficult. Like the campaign we launched when we thought we were like a bit more ready and etc. Didn't work really well because some people obviously had switched to tools and they were like, well, I spent already like some time and I didn't really like it, and it's very difficult because when you're selling like software, a lot of people do the mistake to kind of sell the product and the features and not really the vision or like the outcome. And I feel like when people have tried your product and they're not really happy, unless they hear about you, about a friend or a connection, and they're like, lemlist is amazing, like we've just signed up recently, because we actually had a lot of people coming back, but from an organic standpoint. So either they saw the community or they had like a friend testing lemlist and telling them like it was an amazing tool. But apart from that, if you like messaging them, trying to be like on the push side and not the pull side, it's extremely difficult.
Okay. So to gain that trust again, what I hear you say is that the community really helped you out with kind of with referring people and basically using word of mouth to some extent to kind of provide this trust from a peer recognition to some extent, or some social value provided.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the more than just the community, because like we have a lot of our customers who are not part of our community on Facebook, but who still recommend lemlist a lot. It's just a matter of trying to generate word of mouth by having like a full experience from the sign up to the customer support, up to the articles, that is really consistent and that's really always trying to provide value and making your user more successful, will generate more word of mouth, and hence will bring back those customers that you thought were lost.
Cool. Okay. One other thing that you just spoke about that I thought was very interesting to dive into, because how I see it at least is that the onboarding phase of a product sign up is the most important phase, because it can basically lift the entire retention curve. That the faster you can get a person to experience the value proposition, the more likely they are to retain over time as well. And you talked about kind of like being super personal and super specific with you can say the onboarding of the new users that you will bring along. How do you go about segmentation? Maybe it's always super difficult to kind of know. You have so many different users that sign up for lemlist.
Yeah.
But you also have limited resources. You can't talk to everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually really tricky. So for the lemlist V3, like the 3.0 version, we actually have like a qualification process that will go through like our, let's say, like most active users, etc. Because for some of our users, it's actually like a hidden version of lemlist within lemlist. So for all like existing paying customers, it's more of a kind of upsell to a new like feature system and new system. So that's quite easy to find like your best customers. So because they're already here and you know like they've been customers for quite a long time. But for the new ones, as you mentioned, we try to really like put them through like type forms, gather as much information as possible, and then we have a team like checking all different points: company size, team size, revenue, if we can find that data, industry, what were they using before, all these type of things. And from that, we can decide whether or not it's worth spending time for one-to-one onboarding or not. And then we have the full like self-service part for the current lemlist. So if people go to lemlist and sign up to their free trial, there won't be any onboarding. It's really like full self-service, and we just have like a live chat where people can interact, etc. But the product has been made in a way that make it easy to use and doesn't require demos.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's actually quite interesting here, because what I hear is that there's people who will sign up for your product, but they may not be qualified to buy as of now.
Yeah.
And then they will not go through, you can say, the personalized interview process, or what you call it, the personalized demo or the trial.
Yeah.
But what about the rest? How do you kind of go about them without leaving them on their own? Because I guess you also don't want to leave them on their own,
Yeah.
because I don't know, they may be future customers, or
Yep.
they may sign up with their Hotmail, and and we feel like maybe he's a student worker or something like that, and we score them completely incorrect.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you go about the other users?
Yeah, so that's actually like that's a really good question. There is no real like good or bad answer, I think, because scoring is extremely complex, especially when everything's automated. On our end, we have several things. So we have like first of all, we have like the onboarding process that's try to make it like easier with videos, etc., and good resources. Then one of the first email we sent is asking people to connect with me on LinkedIn. That way, like I know they would start seeing my face because I post like a lot on LinkedIn, and essentially like if they connect, like they connect a bit more with the brand, they connect a bit more with us, with what we do. Then we also try to push them really hard toward the community, because we have a lot of people sharing like their campaign results within the community. It actually like motivates other people. So if you see like, okay, someone who just launched a campaign on lemlist and got, let's say, a 20% reply rate, you're going to be like, damn, I wish it was me. And I know it's possible because that guy did it, And we don't ask people to actually share, like they do it on their own, just saying like, hey, launch my first campaign. And for us, it's amazing to see. And for the community, it's a real social proof. So that's why, we try, because we know that obviously our resources are limited, and we're not going to be able to treat each customer like, with a personalized demo, one-to-one onboarding, etc. The community here is amazing, because we have like so much cool people in it that are always happy to help because they received help in the past, or because like they want to help and they're genuinely like interested in helping other people. And I think like this create kind of a tribe, and that will increase the conversion rate overall.
Yeah, cool. So it seems to me like that you are super, as we also talked about in the start here, that you are super user-centric. You are super focused on kind of gathering qualitative data from your users to kind of know if they experience the value propositions as fast as possible, to measure, I guess, some kind of net promoter score to some extent. You have all this lead scoring built into your own tool and into your systems. How about kind of like standard measurement of retention when they are first onboarded? How do you go about that, and how do you go about maybe optimizing it afterwards?
Yeah, so it's actually like really difficult. That's something we need to work a lot more on, because like I think measuring too much things, like too many metrics, is not a good idea, because you can really like waste a lot of time. So for us, it's pretty simple. Like we measure the number of sign up, we measure the activation rate, and we measure like the conversion rate from sign up to paid. And essentially like this metric are kind of our funnel, and all the action we do, we try to see if they have a repercussion on any metrics, and in what way. So activation rate for us is whether or not someone has launched a campaign, because we know that once they launch a campaign, they're going to start seeing the results coming. And once they start receiving the results, obviously, it's the kind of the wow effect, where you launch your prospecting campaign and potentially receive positive replies. And then like you start liking the tool and seeing like a better ROI. So that's kind of, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just thinking, so the moment where you see an user is engaged or active or activated to the full extent is when they launch this campaign.
Yeah.
Do you also kind of look into what are the steps that they need to take in order for them to launch a campaign? Because I guess like the first step may be that they have to sign up as a user. And then maybe they have to, I don't know, write an email.
Yeah.
Before they can launch a campaign, and they probably also have to import a list to some extent. So there's all these different steps that goes into it. Do you kind of measure all the different steps? We call it kind of like the setup moment, the aha moment, the what can we call it? The habit moment, and then they are activated and then maybe engaged.
Yeah, that's something we don't actually like measure as such. However, we put within like so every event can trigger an email, or basically like we don't trigger like emails based on events. However, we know that after a certain time, we got like all the events from a specific user, and we send him like an email very specific based on what he did or what he forgot to do. So essentially, like based on all the little actions that someone's going to undertake on the platform, we're going to be able to like send them like a highly personalized message saying, for example, hey, like awesome for launching your first campaign. However, we just saw that you forgot to set up your custom tracking domain, which will actually give you much better results. Did you know like that you could do that here? And here's a tutorial to blah, 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 you know? And that way, you know, it's like a better experience. However, that's very true. That's something we need to definitely like work on, are all the different steps. But the thing with all the different steps is to understand, because sometimes it's based on your product, and sometimes it's just based on the people that are, you know, in your product. So for example, we know that we have a lot of signups because obviously like we're making a lot of noise, people talk a lot about us, etc. But some people sign up without really knowing what we do, you know, is it just like a free trial? And so measuring all those steps sometimes is not always the right way, because it's very difficult to focus on the right user. What you would need to do is actually like measure those steps only for your ICP, so ideal customer profile, in order to be able to know that you're building the right product for the right people. And that's actually why for us, all that part of from free trial to paid, etc., it's not something we've heavily invested in. First, because we knew that the product's going to evolve and totally changed. So these are like some stuff where we prefer to be focusing on. And on top of that, because we prefer focusing also on our paying customers, because they are the one who perceive the most value and are perceiving like tons of value. And I know if this one are happy, that the one will join and would be recommended will just decide to go for a paid plan because they know like the value that we provide. So that's kind of our thinking about it. But definitely like what you mentioned is great, and that's something like that we will definitely implement, but maybe at a later stage.
Yeah, it's super difficult to set up all this tracking and kind of like, what should we measure? How should we measure it? How can we even set it up from the get-go? And we have to put a lot of resources into it. Yeah. It can take months just to measure that those specific things, and people just overestimate or underestimate the amount of time that it takes.
Yeah.
You talked about this. You call it ICP. Was that correct? Yeah. The optimal user.
Yeah, or person.
Yeah. And one thing that we hear a lot when we talk about growth and onboarding, especially kind of like, because you wanna make it personal, but not too personal. And also people are super afraid of separating or isolating one specific persona and then forgetting about the rest.
Yeah.
Or kind of like, if I'm too focused on, I don't know what the target persona is, but let me just think of something like a male, 25 to 35 years old from the States, currently working in a B2B martech company or something like that. I don't know if it's that specific or how it is, but how do you approach it, and what about the rest? Do we just forget about those, or how do you do?
I think it's for us. It's a bit more complex. So first, we don't have only like one persona. We try to have like several. At lemlist, we have like around like 5 different personas. On top of that, like the idea is to from time to time run PMF tests, like product market fit tests, to your existing paying customers. So you send them a message asking them, if you couldn't use lemlist tomorrow, how would you feel? A, very disappointed. B, somehow disappointed. And C, not disappointed. With that simple question, you're going to be able to, first of all, split people into buckets. The ones that are very disappointed are the one that would perceive the most value out of your product. And you want to be focusing on those ones. Then the guys that are somehow disappointed are the one you also want to keep, just because you know that these ones are the one that you can turn into your fans in the future, and you need to understand why. And finally, the last bucket, people who would not be interested, it's still interesting to know what they're saying, but for them, usually like they are price sensitive, they see you as a commodity, and they're not really like, they could switch from a time to another. So it's not the one you really want to focus. Then you start gathering information about those persons. You try to understand who they are, what they like the most, etc., etc. And then what you can do is basically cross your data based with the person who replied and the revenue that they brought to you. So the more revenue they bring, obviously, are the one that potentially, like if you can find your top customers and you can find like the next one that will bring as much revenue, it will basically help boost your growth. And essentially, like what you can start is really like see what's missing from the people who are just saying that they will be somehow disappointed. See if it fits also with the people who are saying like very disappointed, and try to kind of mix and match both and see if you can implement it in your roadmap in order to please your customers better and get like a much better retention rate and activation rate in the future.
What are some of the commonalities between, now we talked about the people who couldn't live without lemlist tomorrow. Yeah. What are the commonalities? So when you talk about this onboarding again, and you talk about personalizing it, I guess let's say it's my mother and I, and we both love lemlist, but we are just very different people.
Yeah.
How do you then go about it? Is it a commonality that you look at, that there's a similarity between me and my mother, or are we two different personas from your perspective?
It would really depend, but essentially, yeah, like it's commonalities. Like you can find like common grounds from company size. You can split it in company size, revenue, team size, industries, and all this type of data would actually help you like put people into groups. And then, you know, like some groups can actually be linked and like the exact same thing. And those person can be under like one persona, for example. If you see that, for example, like two groups like exactly the same thing and see like that the most value is, for example, in one specific feature, then you can really like focus on those and have this. And at the same time, you know, like let's take the example of the vanilla ice cream. You can take like two very, very different persons, but that both like the same ice cream, you know. And at that point, you know, the ice cream is never going to change. It's going to be the same vanilla ice cream, and they like them both. And that's kind of how it works. And for us, you know, it's like sometimes the same message can really match like different type of people, and that's fine. You know, it's like the common ground, or sometimes it's just like being you and keep doing what you do, and that's what helps you like people like get more into what you're trying to achieve and use your solution more.
Do you sell ice cream? Because I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah. Last time, so I'm start thinking about food a lot.
Guillaume, we have one more question of today, and it's basically tied to the name of this podcast or this live stream. So imagine that you one day woke up and lemlist were out of growth. What would be the first step that you would do?
I think like out of growth and plateaus are actually like a lot of people stress about it. Obviously, it's not something like nice, especially when you're experiencing like super fast growth, etc. But I think it's a good time to just like breathe, you know, like slow down, and again, like full focus on your users. So what I would do is actually like get in touch with my best users, spend time to understand what is really like the values that they perceive, try to understand what's missing, what are like the key points in their like funnel that we could improve or help them improve. Really try to think from a product perspective and also from a marketing standpoint. Because, for example, you know, like if you look at the content out there, there are like tons of things that are missing, you know. Like it's very difficult to find really good content that is actionable, that people can follow like step by step and have good results. It's difficult to find like content that is not just like promotion content and all this type of thing. So I think when you focus on your users, try to understand really what their pain is, and really keep that in mind all the time, you will always grow essentially. And if you have a plateau at some point, I think it's actually an opportunity to understand like why are your existing users staying? Like, what's the real why? And then like try to find more customers like them in order to grow, you know.
Cool. So Guillaume, before we end, where can we learn more about you? How about lemlist? Like, where would you like the crowd to go?
I think people can connect with me on LinkedIn. So if you type Guillaume Lemlist, you will find me. And otherwise, like lemlist.com website is, or just type Lemlist on Google.
Cool. Thank you so much for having you here today, Guillaume.
Thanks a lot for having me, Nikki.
Take care. And
You
bye
too.
to the crowd as well.
Yeah, bye everyone. Take care.